I'm going to be responding to that claim that child beauty pageants are damaging young girls. My opponent's secondary claims were child beauty pageants cause cognitive and emotional problems. They lead to health issues. Children who participate in such pageants are more vulnerable to sexual predation. The opponent mentions a 2007 report and claims that there is an association between hypersexualization of young girls and low self-esteem or depression, but she never mentions any statistics on how strong this relationship is. In Gartry Martinez's article, it states that, as my opponent said, that 40% of the children who participate in beauty pageants have problems psychologically. So taking this sentence and breaking it down, the article does give a percentage and data mentioning the psychological problems, but 40% is not enough data to generalize this about all beauty pageants. And it doesn't mention where she got her sample, or it's 40% of how many children who participate. The claim says that it's 40% of children in general who participate, so there are boys who are included in this 40%, when her main claim is actually about girls. So taking out the boys lower the percentage even more. The claim she has also says that 40% of children who participate had psychological problems, but it never mentions that those 40% children has these problems as a result of their participation in these contests. It can always be something else that caused them to have these problems while participating in these events. There are no data provided to support that the association between the problem and the events, and admit that it's a cause-effect relationship. Another thing is that the data is based on her 2006 statistics, which is not very recent to say it is reliable data in accordance to recent beauty pageants. That's almost 10 years ago. In fact, in the same article she uses, Martina mentions quote-unquote achievement by proxy, which is when parents feel pride for satisfaction achievement by their children. The article focuses on how parents push their children to win and how they don't support them when they lose. The author says, quote-unquote, risky sacrifice is a loss of the adult's ability to differentiate their needs for success and achievement from their child's. Children can be judged in a basketball game or a musical contest. The point here relies on the parents. When their children lose in a beauty pageant, they don't encourage them, explaining how beauty is not everything. And losing in one of these events doesn't mean that they're not smart or they don't have any other talents. Instead, they just push them hard the next time to win. It is all about the parents supporting them no matter what and making them feel proud that they took the step and participated in the first place. And this can be applied to a basketball game, gymnastics, or like a musical contest or anything. This can also help them understand the fact that they should grow up accepting winning and losing, and that life is not about winning and everything. Another thing my opponent mentions is how hairspray is dangerous to young girls' health. She talks about how it can cause lung problems. While her data are 100% sure about how dangerous these hairsprays can be for little girls, pageants are not required. They don't require little girls to use them anyway. When her main claim is about how these contests damage little girls, she focuses so much of her claim about how hairsprays damages their health, which is a completely different topic because it does not support the main claim. Another point that was mentioned was that these girls are judged through the eyes of other people and how this leads to changes in how they view their body image. Even though she doesn't give any evidence for that, kids can be judged everywhere by anybody. They can get judged by their parents, teachers, or friends, or relatives. The point here is not about judging. It is about building stronger personality. They can get judged or compared to their siblings or friends for not being as sportive or not being as smart or being fatter. Judging is everywhere. Participating in beauty pageants can help many young girls to grow and improve in confidence and social skills. Another strong point that was mentioned was the murder of John Bennett. My opponent talked about how she was a child beauty queen and how she was considered a perfect target. Even though she doesn't give any evidence for that, according to her biography, John Bennett was the daughter of a well-known wealthy businessman. When she was murdered, her parents found a note on her bed that from the people who murdered her, asking for $118,000. Even though the investigation never reached who murdered her and why, it's pretty obvious that their main and primary goal was money, and putting in mind that her father was a wealthy and well-known businessman. Thank you.
right, well, you started off indicating what the proposition was and what the secondary points were, and then that was kind of the last time I heard any reference to the structural integrity of the original speech. You just kind of go through a variety of individual points, and some of them you go through a long time and repeatedly, and then we're on to another point, and I don't know if it's a separate, distinct claim or if it's evidence under that same point. And like I said, sometimes it's not even a counterclaim that you're presenting. You've got kind of this philosophical statement about what's happening, and I'm not exactly sure that the philosophy automatically competes with the point that the advocate was making on those points. Maybe everybody could agree there's a better way for people to develop self-esteem, but how is that document, or how does that undermine the advocate's claim that beauty pageants tear down self-esteem? I'm not sure that those arguments really have much to do with that. You do go after that 40% figure pretty early on, and I think one of the main questions ought to be how that statistic was arrived at. There's not really any explanation. Mostly what you kind of do is start suggesting hypothetical things. Well, what if there were boys in the study? It doesn't say how many people were in this. Those are little presses. Those are okay. But I think the bigger question is, look, that's a pretty dramatic statistic, and how is it determined? What was the size of the sample? And, in the fact that there were participants in beauty pageants, was that the original purpose of the study? We don't even know how it was published. We just have a name and that statistic, and I think there are a lot of questions about that. You ask a couple of relevant questions, but I think there are other questions that would probably be a little bit more relevant. Then there's a challenge to some data that's 10 years old. I think that that's a reasonable press that it's old, but is there a reason to believe that things have changed in those circumstances? I didn't really hear any reason why that would be different. I got on this whole discussion about achievement by proxy, and all it seems to me to be is an explanation about what happens in these contests, but none of it seems to be about whether or not it has a negative effect on the kids. It's just about, why do the parents do this? How do they do this? How could they avoid doing this? What would be nicer for them to do? All those sorts of things. But the main proposition says that there's some harm that's being caused here. So it sounds like maybe there's an argument here that says that the real cause of the problem isn't participation in the beauty pageants, but it's the way the parents are treating their children. I think that's probably the counterclaim that you want to say, and you need to make that a simple declarative sentence. Instead, we get this long, convoluted explanation of achievement by proxy. The hairspray issue, you basically say, well, it's not a relevant point because it doesn't address that issue. It's not required. I'm not sure that that eliminates this as a potential health hazard or issue. The context that the advocate talked about may have suggested a couple of places where it would be problematic. I think you need a more important answer to that point, but I did appreciate that you tried to say something about it. Your refutation of the Joan Benet Ramsey argument, I think, is pretty reasonable, although you do need a source citation about the ransom note, and it sounds to me like the police suspected that it was monetarily motivated. You should probably have some data on that. All right, thank you.